Last week, we were looking at the spiritual temperature of the churches and looked at the valley of the dry bones in Ezekiel. We played a bit of reverse psychology and asked how we might empty the church and drive people away. But I guess what we were really asking was, how do we raise the spiritual temperature of the churches? How do we ensure we are connected to God in our worship and prayer life? And how do we enable our churches to grow? We introduced everyone to dwelling in the Word when we looked at the passage from Ezekiel. Unfortunately, the outside broadcast department has been closed down this week, and Heidi and I have not been able to record the customary introductory videos from our churches. So playing with Zoom backgrounds is as good as it gets this week. The United Church. What does it look like? Is it achievable? What does the Bible say about unity in the church? A quick Google search suggests that it says a lot. But if that's the case, why does the church keep splitting up into different denominations? Today, we're going to explore this in a little bit more detail. Indeed, we could have a whole Bible study course on this very issue, but alas, we only have 90 minutes. But hopefully, we can whet your appetite. So to get things going, we're going to go into our breakout groups and look at the experiences we have had so far and ask, what experiences of worship in, or indeed being members of, different denominations or styles of churchmanship have you had? What did you feel comfortable with, or not as comfortable as the case may be? What were the key differences? And what might hinder our work with other denominations? One of my previous roles before I was ordained was working as the County Ecumenical Officer for Cambridgeshire. This took me all over the county, and I had the privilege of working with churches of various denominations and traditions. On one Sunday, Heidi and I led a cafe service at our local church. Then we attended a lively worship service at another. And then in the evening, we spent time with Catholic nuns at a Julian prayer session. 3 different extremes of what church is in one day. One aspect of my role was working nationally with my ecumenical colleagues who had similar roles across the country. Each year, we would attend the National Churches Together in England conference to share ideas and learn from each other. You knew the church was at least attempting to be united when you could spend some time at the bar in conversation with the Archbishop of Canterbury, and then have a conversation over breakfast the next morning with Cardinal Vincent Nichols, the head of the Catholic Church. My equivalent in Essex and East London was Jackie King. She attended an ecumenical church, which also happened to be a brand new church, in Great Notley near Braintree. So I've asked her to record a short video sharing a little about the history of that church and her experiences of ecumenical working. Many Christians have either grown up in a church or a particular denomination and stuck with it throughout. Or if they've not grown up in a church, they've become aligned to the particular tradition where they first became a Christian. I know others might not be as tied to a particular denomination, but I sometimes think churches are much like political parties in more ways than one. We have right-wing versus left-wing politics. We have conservative versus liberal theology, for example. But why all these differences if the ultimate goal is to have a united church? There are literally tens of thousands of denominations across the world constantly splitting because of differences in theology and belief. But each will have their own treasures, and for the most part, those treasures might be the same. But yes, there are fundamental differences, hence the splits. Our separated denominations are witness to the inability of Christians to hold our treasures together. And as those treasures have become separated, they have evolved differently in different forms across our denominations. It's said that what splits churches is just the small differences compared to what actually unites us. Of course, that may be small in terms of the number of differences because some of them are major issues. Take infant baptism, for example. Some will baptize infants, whereas others won't. Some denominations share in the Eucharist, albeit in different forms, and others don't. However, if it's the treasures that could potentially unite churches, it might be our baggage that separates us. For some, it's hierarchy. For others, bureaucracy. For our next short discussion together, let's look at the baggage. Might we identify with anything in our churches that might be seen as, by us or others, as baggage? And this is not about changing anything. There might be very good reasons for it to be there. But even if it's perceived to be baggage, it might present us with a problem.